Juveniles are just one of the many marginalized groups in prison systems today. Through research, it is evident that our system continuously fails to enhance rehabilitation resources like education. In addition, they fail to enforce and provide valuable opportunities for personal growth.
Once eligible to be released, it is statistically proven with proper education programs and resources, juveniles are less likely to return to a correctional institution. Specifically, we are going to dive deeper into the flaws within the system. This involves interviewing both juvenile criminal defense lawyers and a Florida judge to get their perspective and gain a better understanding of the issue going on today.
From overcrowded cells, unsanitary living environments, and lack of educational resources, these facilities strip away the basic rights and dignities. Thus, instead of fostering rehabilitation and growth, they face trauma, resentment, and a loss of hope. This issue is something that not very many people are aware of. From a theological standpoint, the treatment of these vulnerable individuals goes against our faith and the teachings of compassion and justice. Our project aims to delve into this reality, analyzing the systematic flaws and making it known to others, many of which are around the same age as these juveniles.
The treatment of the juveniles within the criminal justice system deserves the acknowledgement to be made known that every individual possesses inherent dignity and worth.
Children can be charged with every crime that an adult can be charged with, right? But they're not looking at prison time. They're looking at juvenile commitment facilities or juvenile probation. And it's not a set amount of time of sentence in juvenile court. It's all based on your performance as a youth and whether you've shown that you've been rehabilitated. Juveniles, where we're supposed to be treating them differently under Enrique Galt, and finding that juveniles are supposed to be a protected class and that we need to look at them differently than their adult criminal counterparts. We're seeing the trend in our laws actually treating juveniles in a more strict form than you would see an adult with due process violations right now. We have the Department of Juvenile Justice in our juvenile courts. A child will be told you have to go to school every single day without any suspensions, expulsions. You can't to follow all household rules, abide by a curfew if they impose it, community service hours, counseling, mentoring, a letter of apology, things like that could show rehabilitation. And obviously no new arrests, no weapons or firearms, ammunition, things like that. And it's however long it takes you to complete them. The department is trying to make there be more opportunities for kids, but when you think of a normal upbringing and a normal childhood and having exposure to clubs and having exposure to internships and things like that, these children are not receiving that at all. They're not receiving it in the community, even when they're not committed and they're in the system and maybe wanting to have access to that internship. They have to get linked with a service provider that's already overworked that may not even have access to that. Okay. So we take for granted the opportunities that we have of freedom and like being able to be having a privilege to work and have access to things when these kids really don't have that. And then when they maybe have the opportunity, then it's a little bit like they're stigmatized because they have a record and then they may have blown their chance.
Oh, I'm kidding.
To have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So there's a couple studies that have said that the more time and more opportunity that a child has to be exposed to any kind of incarcerative setting, even by days, every added day increases their chances of winding up in Florida State Prison because you're exposing them to institutionalization, right? And making it more normal for them. The more it gets normalized, the more it gets accepted. The more time you spend in a setting like that, the more it becomes home-like to you, unfortunately. But there are children that truly are rehabilitated And they're that small group of people that I get really proud of to hear the success stories. I keep in contact with a few of my clients, and some of them have still continued to mess up and then turned it around. There is hope. I don't want to make it seem like there's no hope.
Yeah.
There's just maybe not a lot of it sometimes.
I'm going to say, I believe that many kids enter the juvenile justice system as a result, or I'm not going to say result, but I do believe underlining trauma contributes to reasons why kids can end up getting arrested. But some people that have unresolved trauma, whether that's sexual abuse, they've been in homes of domestic violence or substance abuse, all kinds of different examples of childhood traumas. But when those traumas aren't appropriately dealt with and you grow up and you become a teenager, sometimes you start acting out, and what we call that is maladaptive behaviors. Basically, kids develop coping mechanism to deal with the trauma and the pain and the hurt and the suffering that they're feeling. And the coping mechanisms aren't always healthy. And when all those things start happening, skipping school, using drugs, and running away, I'll tell you that they're more likely to end up getting arrested and coming into contact with police, and then coming to my courtroom. And then we deal with the child as though they're a juvenile offender, when I feel like maybe the shift should be, hey, what is really going on? What is the underlying reason that you're exhibiting these behaviors? And if we could figure out what the basis of why they're doing this and address that appropriately, then maybe we can end the cycle, like you said. Two of my favorite programs. I am a former board member on PACE Center for Girls, and I'm on the advisory board. And I love PACE because they really provide those wraparound services, not just to the girl, but they also try to work with the family. They provide that one-on-one counseling. They just give them support in their academics. And the Bougainvillea, I think they do a great job too. And I don't think there's enough good programs like that providing those wraparound services to meet all the different socioeconomic groups and dynamics that are out there. Yeah, they really say that all a child needs is like one person in their life who truly cares. One adult that invests in the child can really make a difference. And I do think PACE is a great program. And if the child isn't getting that at home or doesn't have those role models at home, it can be anyone in the community. And I don't think there are as many programs that are as effective out there. We need more people who are passionate and care and really want to help. Sometimes, some of the places we make referrals to, they just kind of go through the motions and they meet with the child and they check some boxes, and it's not effective because kids are smart. They know if someone's just there waiting to get their paycheck, they're not going to open up. They're not going to relive this trauma. They're not going to invest in someone who hasn't invested in them. So yeah, that to me is our number one need, is good programs that really make a difference. It is a challenge, I'll say, because when I do send a child to a rehabilitative Department of Juvenile Justice program, they always release them with some aftercare. And we make referrals to programs in the community for them to try to get them reintegrated in school, try to give them the support services. And number one, I'll say that, you can't force somebody to do something. So if the juvenile doesn't want to do it, it's not going to be successful, number one. Number two, sometimes it's a really big ask, because when the juvenile's returned, maybe they've been at this program for 6-9 months, but they're returned to the same family dynamic, the same neighborhood, the same school where maybe all the problems originated. So sometimes we focus so much on the juvenile themselves, but there's all these other factors that helped contribute?
Here are the 4 main injustices happening in the juvenile justice system.
Number 1, lack of rehabilitation. Many facilities prioritize punishment over rehabilitation, failing to address the underlying issue that led the youth into the system in the first place.
Number 2, inadequate education. There's often a lack of access to quality education within juvenile facilities, hindering the chances of the youth to succeed once they're released.
3, limited mental health services. Many youth in the detention have experienced trauma or struggle with mental health issues, yet facilities often lack adequate resources to provide comprehensive mental health support.
Number 4, harsh punishment measures, such as solitary confinement, are sometimes used excessively, resulting in mental health issues and hindering rehabilitation efforts.
Catholic social teaching really focuses on the dignity of the human person, no matter their situation, and especially in the Catholic social teaching about life and dignity of the human person, it says that everyone deserves respect and a chance to improve their lives, and that everyone in the church family has inherent dignity. And especially when it comes to kids in juvenile detention, the church believes they should be treated with care and not just be punished for what they did. Just because actions don't always define a person. They should be able to get the help they need to heal and get back on the right path, and there should be options and opportunities for these kids in juvenile detention to put themselves back out there into the real world and maybe get help, therapy, like group talk sessions. And it's all about mercy and finding ways to help them grow rather than just locking them away and looking down upon them for what they've done. And the church also talks about the importance of looking at why these kids might end up in detention in the first place and working on these issues and trying to fix them for society. In a more broader context, Catholic social teaching considers actions such as physical abuse, negligence, excessive punishment, and degrading treatment as inhumane. And because of this, the church advocates for restorative justice practices that focus on rehabilitation, healing, and addressing the underlying causes of the criminal behaviors rather than solely just punitive measures. There's a quote from Pope John Paul II that says, "The measure of a society is found in how it treats its most vulnerable members." So we also are being judged about how we treat and how we react to these children coming back into society. And this quote from Pope John Paul II, it reminds us of the importance of caring and protecting those who are most in need, including, and especially including, children and individuals who just came out of juvenile detention. Because many of these kids were probably abandoned from their parents, put in foster care. Many of them are orphans, and so they were never raised the right way, and there needs to be measures taken and rehabilitation centers for these kids to learn how to act properly, just learn how to fit better in society and to learn the difference between right and wrong, because they probably won't learn those things. Pope Francis also speaks out about treating those in juvie with the dignity and compassion they deserve by saying, "Every person, regardless of their mistakes, has the right to be treated with respect and to be given the opportunity for rehabilitation and reintegration into society." And I think he made this point because there are a lot of harsh conditions that these children have to face when they're in juvie, and also when they leave, but especially when they're inside. Like they're locked in cells that can sometimes be as small as 7 by 10 feet for 22 to 24 hours per day. And many of these detention centers don't allow personal belongings, don't allow access to educational systems, no access to counseling or mental health treatment, and there's like little interaction with other people. So they're kind of being treated like animals. And they're also frequently denied of adequate food, adequate mental treatment, and just denied of access to basic sanitary facilities. And this was completely against what Catholic social teaching promotes, because even when they're inside, not even only when they leave, but also when they're inside, these children should be treated with the respect and dignity they deserve. Yes, they made a mistake, but yes, they're also still human with inherent dignity, and they're people who are healing and repairing from what they've done, and they deserve to be treated with respect, which right now they're not, because of just the messed up system of juvenile detention centers. But hopefully with Catholic social teaching, that changes.
One of the programs that really do try to help these kids within the juvenile system is PACE Center for Girls, talked about by Judge Ross. This center really does try to help the girls not only academically, but also within their personal lives. Academically, the center is able to help the girls catch up on school missed. Not just school assignments or 1 or 2 days here, but maybe these kids fell behind in school. Maybe these kids fell behind in school by 1, 2, or even 5 years. The center has an 18-month program that is able to catch these girls up so they can return to public school, succeed once they graduated from their program. One of the ways they help these girls is by getting them job interviews. Not only do they get them the interviews, not only do they help them get the interviews, but they also help prepare them. They go over questions that may be asked in the interview, and they understand that their wardrobes may not be appropriate for the job interview, so they have a closet on site that the girls are allowed to borrow from. The girls are allowed to borrow business attire to do their interviews, but the PACE Center also uses this closet as a reward system. If the girls are able to attend 1 full week of school, coming all 5 days, then the girls are allowed to go into the closet and pick an article of either clothing or accessory to get to take home.
Along with PACE, there are many other youth reentry programs to help juveniles. Friends of Returning Citizen, also known as F4RC, is a new program that helps build up juveniles after exiting a facility. They provide things such as bus passes, clothing, gift cards, and computer instructions, as well as emotional support to the juveniles. Another great program is called the Prison Entrepreneurship, also known as PEP. In this program, it connects former prisoners and juvenile prisoners to enter the business system and meet with business entrepreneurs and business owners to build up their job opportunities and receive job opportunities from this program. These programs are crucial in helping the juvenile justice system. Society needs to support and uplift these programs to further end the injustice acts happening in the juvenile justice system.